Once everyone, it's Matt Mrozek, and this will be work in progress number 4 on the Graven Beast, Graven Labs Beast prototype. So last time I did the balloon and everything, here's the pants and the belt. I've got some touch-ups to do because after I put the epoxy on the legs and put them on the base, I had a gap up here and here. So this looks a lot worse than it is. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to basically fix the gap here, and then I'm going to go in and touch the paint. So to fix the gap, I think the best thing for me to do is to use some Aves. So I'm going to get some of that out. And I'll have to let this dry like overnight before I can do anything with it, before I can paint it. But for Aves, you just need equal parts of the epoxy putty. And I had a lot of ooze out from the epoxy. I put too much on, so this is kind of one of those things where I was a little overzealous with the epoxy when I was putting this on. So I've got equal parts of Aves. And I'm going to mix this up really good. And I'm basically going to fill this gap in. And I'm going to have to go back and touch up the paint on the pants and the legs right there. And I got some touch-ups on the belt too. Basically, when I was with the epoxy legs on, it got messy, which in turn requires some touch-ups on my part. So, not the end of the world, just a little extra work to do. So let me mix this up. And I'm just going to basically fill this gap in and make it look like it's part of the pants, I think. So the way this works is that, when I was doing all the test fitting before I started painting, it all worked because everything was loose. And it all worked, you could line everything up really easily. Well, now that, once I went to epoxy the legs in and get those like solidified, they didn't have the flexibility as they did before as far as like getting things to fit. So it's a little extra work that I hadn't anticipated. It's not the end of the world, you gotta make adjustments. So I'm gonna do this, and then while this dries today, I'll start masking the base off and spraying some of the purple. All right, so you just mix this up really good. Equal parts A and B. Just like this. I use gloves because it gets your hands sticky. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make basically going to roll this out and make a ribbon of it. A little skinny. Like this. And I got some of my sculpting tools over here. I get to them. Great thing about Aves is you have a lot of working time with it. I can't get to it because everything is so tight up now. There we go. Okay. So I got these little silicone tipped tools. And I'm going to take this. I'm just going to put it in this gap here, like so. I'm going to push it in. So I hadn't anticipated this happening, that when I went to go glue these together that I would have, gaps and stuff up here, but they did. I'm just going to go in there and fix them. So I can get this smoothed out enough where I don't have to do, the goal is to get this smoothed out where I don't have to do any sanding, because then I'll mess up my paint even more. I just want to be able to go in there and touch up the paint. And I have to like do a lot of masking and stuff. I think I can do if I just take my time with the A's. You can see here already that this is looking much better right here. This will harden up solid. You can see where all the epoxy oozed down and got all over everywhere. I'm not worried about that because once I touch up the paint and flat coat it, that won't show up at all. I didn't get to work on this at all this week. I was so busy with work. And just first week back at school with the kids, we had basically something almost every night with them, getting ready for school and stuff. So I was just really tired from work, so I didn't work on anything during the week this week. All right, so I'm gonna get some of my water. A little water here. Smooth this out. So I got a little bit that came up into the fur, which is no problem. I can just replicate the fur pattern in the A's, just like that. And it'll look like it's part of the sculpt. Just like that. So you can see here I'm kind of replicating the fur pattern in the putty. I think you can see that. A little more putty right there. I'll just do one of these on camera and then I'll do the other one off because you'll get the idea of what I got to do here. So I'll have to come in here and probably mask off the legs and respray the pants a little bit and then do the belt again, but it's no big deal. You know, it's just a little extra work. But I don't want to see those gaps, so it's worth it. And my dog is howling like she's dying outside. Again. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I put, that's not water. Put the wrong thing in there. It's like, why is my cut melting? I threw lacquer thinner in there on accident. This is pretty good right here. Once this gets painted, this will blend in really nicely. Yeah, it's got a little touch-up to do. There's always touch-ups to do, but usually towards the end. It's looking pretty good. All right, so there's that one. That's filled. I should get a Q-tip here. It's got a little softer. There we go. Just like that. Okay. So I'm going to do the other side, and then after that, I have to let it dry before I can do anything, before I can do any painting and stuff, but that's what we got to do on both sides where that gap opened up. So I'll do that, and then we'll come back and start working on some of the other steps while this dries. Okay, so another thing I have to do, since I have the legs epoxied on and trying to get things still to fit correctly, is I need to rekey this finger over here in the base so the piece will fit in correctly. Let's see if I can try to get this on video. So what I'm going to do is I've ground out this area right here so I can put some Bondo in there. I'm going to rekey it like I did similarly over here. And I've ground this down a little bit so it can rotate within the hand a little bit like this. Let me show you why. So basically the way this has to work is that the only fixed point on this base is right here where this foot pegs in down here. Okay, so when I do that, if I spin this around, we can see here that the foot doesn't peg in all the way now since I got it all epoxy. So what I'm going to do is I made this loose and I've ground that down in there. So I'm going to do what I did before. I'm going to fill that hole with Bondo. Let's see if make sure you guys can see what I'm going to do. So I'm going to fill the hole in here. See, it's actually already staying where it needs to be, but I'm going to rekey it anyway. So I'm going to make it so where the foot will be against the finger, because otherwise it wants to sag down here and not line up. So it's pretty amazing that all his weight is basically supported by this foot for the most part. So I'm going to take this off just for now so it's not sitting there, because I don't want to put too much weight on it. Got a towel over here to the side where I can lay him down and get some of my filler, my Bondo filler, like I did before. And some hardener. And you're probably asking, why didn't I do this before I painted? Well, because before I painted, I didn't have the legs epoxied on. Once I epoxied the legs, and there wasn't any give in the legs, things didn't want to line up again. So I have to go back and do some refitting. Again, not the end of the world, just a little extra work. So I'm gonna go get some filler. So we did before, like that. Get more than I need. And there is a magnet in that foot and the finger, but it's not strong enough to pull the foot in, so that's why I'm doing this. Okay, I'm gonna do that. Put that to the side. I'm gonna get petroleum jelly and put that around the foot. And don't worry, because I'll give it a bath before I do any more painting. Excuse me. So we're going to take some petroleum jelly here. I'm just going to coat the bottom of the foot here. You probably won't be able to see it on camera. I'm over here. I'm not sure how wide my frame is right now. Like I said, this will get a nice bath and soapy water before I do any more painting again anyway. Can't do any painting on this until that Aves dries anyway. So we're going to coat that. That way any ooze out will not stick to this. And only stick to the finger on the base. You know, I'd be extra cautious with this petroleum jelly and put it kind of everywhere, because it washes off easily with soap and water. The degreasing soap and water, it won't hurt the paint. Okay, like that. then we're going to mix up the body filler. Put that to the side. Make sure you guys can see what I'm doing here. My workbench is barely big enough to work on this. So I'm going to put a little hardener there. We're going to mix this up. And I didn't put a whole lot of hardener in it. It's going to take it longer to dry, but it gives me a little more working time. You mix this up till it's a consistent color. You don't want to see any blue streaks or gray streaks. And you'll have areas that didn't harden. That. And then like we did on previous keys, we're going to kind of fill this in a little bit. Like this. This way this will ooze out everywhere and give you a good solid key. Put this in. And I gotta kind of work kind of quickly because I don't want that Bondo curing before I get the foot in. Come on. Put that down. And then we're going to put this in there. And then I'm going to put a clamp on this, just gently hold it in place. Just like that. So now, when this cures, the key should be tight enough that will hold the foot in place in that finger, and then we'll be all lined up again. So it's another extra step I had to do, but it's no big deal. You know, you kind of, sometimes you got to do stuff like that. You have to maybe take a step back or so, but he's getting there. Once this cures and I clean that up, I'll be able to start kind of doing the purple. Well, actually, I can start doing it on one of the fingers. I can start masking that off and show that process. So I'll be back. Okay, so I want to show you that this is working now. It didn't take too long for that filler to cure. So I'm going to show you how this all fits together now the way it should, the way it did before I started painting. So at least on this one, what you have to do is you have to put the beast on first, on this right here. Get him to sit down in there like that. And then this is the key I just made. I just went there and kind of spot primed it. Put it in here like this, and then just bring the foot up and it fits in there perfectly now. So it fits like you should, and down there. So I'm just going to leave this loose like that. That way it's easy to get in and out. Not sure if they'll have to do that with production pieces. That's what I had to do on this one. Just simply because of the way I did things. So yeah, he's working now. So now I'm going to do is I'm going to start going through and I'm going to start masking off to do some of the purple on the base. And because I want to wait till this Aves cures before I do any more touch-ups and painting on the beast himself. Because I want to do, I got some other touch-ups on the body I've seen. I got to, again, just from handling it and stuff, you get little Mars here and there. So let that dry overnight. And then to take him off, you just take the foot out. And then you can take them off the base like that. So there's that. So let's do some masking. This is going to be so much fun because there's going to be a lot of it. So best way to do this, I think, It's going to be tedious, but I think the best way to do this is with a bunch of little pieces of tape. And the way to do that is I'm going to start off with this size tape from Tamiya. Camera down so we can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to take this tape right here. I'm not sure what the exact size is. This is like 10 millimeter, I think it is. They go by millimeters. And what I like to do is I like to put a strip out on my workbench like this. Get an X-Acto knife. I just had a second ago. There we go. So it's a fairly fresh blade. I just come here and just kind of cut up little pieces like this. And then I take a piece off. And the trick is, because I have to get up underneath all this mechanical detail, basically put I do small pieces because I can put it's much easier to place one small piece of tape at a time than it is to try to get a big piece down in there. So we're going to do that. And then we do the next piece. And we overlap that one. Like so. And then the next piece. Overlapping. Like so. So this is going to be several hours of masking to do this. So I got to do all the joints, and I got to do the base. And once you kind of get, you know, just throw a movie on or some music, and I just kind of get a rhythm going, like that. I use the X-Acto knife to kind of push it into place if I have to. And I got a Q-tip here just to kind of push it down and seal it. You guys can see that on that camera. Let me go over a corner. It's a little trickier because you gotta get that tape to conform to the corner. Again, a lot of guys would use silly putty here. The last time I tried to use silly putty and I used a clear coat, when I went to go pull the silly putty up, it pulled all my paint up. I think the silly putty kind of got melted by the clear coat, so I don't do that anymore. It was a disaster. I had to strip the base. It was the second Walking Dead versus the Punisher kit I did. I had to strip the base and start over, and it was a nightmare. So I spent so much time masking for just to pull my paint up. Just like that. Again, I'm just going to get to go. This may be a good example where I can use a slightly bigger piece. Oh, this part actually comes out. That's the part that comes out. It's much easier. I didn't realize that. So I can come in here and use a bigger piece and just go across those details like that. There's no real definitive line here as far as gears and stuff, so I can just kind of make my own. Sometimes you can use a bigger piece depending on what you're doing. Right here, I can use a slightly bigger piece. That. So once this purple is down, that's a huge step on this piece. After the purple's down, the rest of the base should be fairly simple. It'll be mostly hand painting the stone and pipes and stuff like that. And there's a on the color on the 3D render, everything is purple. But I think what I'm gonna do is after I spray the purple, I'm gonna mask off these bolts and spray those in metallic color just to give it some separation. Always not all one color. But I'm gonna do some shading too. So it's gonna be like a candied metallic purple. Marcus sent me, it's actually funny, Marcus, we were talking about it, and the picture, I had a color in my mind, and Marcus sent me a picture of a Volkswagen Bug in a metallic purple, and it was the exact color I had in my mind. So it was perfect. So now I know that we're both on the same page as far as what the purple is going to look like. It's more of a violet than it is purple. It's going to look really, really slick when it's done. So I'm not going to bore you with countless hours of masking, but this is what you got to do if you're using tape. You come in here little pieces at a time. You just overlap each piece, and you make your way around the area. Like this. So I will throw on a movie and keep doing this, and we'll see how long it takes. There's a lot of it to do. So, but once this part is done, it's a huge hurdle on this piece. Let's see. So some areas, I was going to say something, but never mind. Let's do one joint here on a video so you can see the process. In actual time for one joint. And then you can take that, multiply it by, well, each finger has 2 joints, so 10 plus other areas. I use my X-Acto knife. I try to get just the tip of it on the tape. That way when I stick it to the surface, it's sticky enough that it'll stick to the X-Acto knife, but not too sticky that when I want to go place it down, it doesn't come off the X-Acto knife. Trying to get that in there. So I overlap a lot because I don't want to avoid any spray through. That's the trick when you're doing it this way. You got to make sure that you overlap your tape enough that when you go to spray your paint, that it's not going to go between 2 pieces of tape. I'm constantly pushing the edges down. And more than likely there will be some brush touch up I'll have to do after this, but try to keep it down to a minimum. Smaller piece here. The trick is when you're getting way down these areas down here, so get the tape where you want it. And you'll never see this way down there unless you sit there and examine it, but we're going to make sure it's done right. So we're getting tape all the way down in there. Just covering up the mechanical bits. I'm not sure if you can see that, but we got that all outlined in here with tape and that way down there. Yeah, so this, you get a rhythm going, but this still does take quite a bit of time. Once you get the outline done, then you just cover the rest of it with bigger pieces of tape. It's just getting this initial outline that takes a long time. Okay, that's pretty good. A little spot here. So what I did there is that I just cut a little relief cut in the tape there, so it would go around that corner. Okay. So this outline looks pretty good. I'll go back in there and just push down on it, make sure it's all sealed really good. Like that. And then we're going to take the next size tape. This Tamiya tape really is the best. I've used painter's tape before, like the 3M blue tape, and it works, but I don't know, to me it has really hit a home run with this tape. It's like the perfect tackiness to stick while you're painting, but still pull up really easily when you're done. I find the 3M blue tape that once, if you stick it down, then you have to, like, if you have to pull it back up to reposition it, you might as well just throw that piece of tape away. It's lost its ability to stick really well. So even though this tape is pricey, I stock up every year. Squadron Eagle Quest, I get it for like 30% off, and just basically buy all their tape, and it lasts me about a year. It's well worth it. It's safe to use on your work. The chances of you pulling paint up with this is pretty low. I mean, I've had lifting issues before, but it's not because of the tape. It's because usually there's something on the surface, or there's just some mold release that will not come off the resin. I've had that before. Only had one piece where I just could not get anything to stick to it in all the kits I've ever painted. I'm not sure if the resin just wasn't cured or the mold release was just super durable. But man, I stripped it and painted it like 5 times, and I could not get paint to stick to it, no matter what I did. So it's basically covering up the rest of the piece. And then we'll go to the last size, which is this size right here. It's 18 millimeter, I think it is. And we'll just finish masking over this. just like that. So there's one piece masked, or one part of a joint, I should say. And I get to go do this all over the rest of the kit. And some of these are going to be harder because I got to mask this side and underneath here. So that's going to be tricky. This part right here where it's open, it's easy to get to, is relatively simple. Like you just saw it. Again, this just takes time. Those other areas where I have to get like taped down into spots is going to be tricky and just take a while. But there you go. So this piece is ready to, let's see, and then I see a little spot where I can see a potential spot where paint to get into. So I just go in there and throw in a little piece on top. So before I spray any purple, I'll probably hit these again one more time with a quick coat of just the black, either black paint or black primer, just so it's all the same color. And we'll go for there. So I'm going to mask my little heart out for the next several hours, and then we'll spray some purple. All right. See you guys in a little bit. Okay, after spending about 2 hours and only getting this far on this arm with tape, I decided to go ahead and use Silly Putty. This took me about 15 minutes. So yeah, the tape was going super slow. I think this is going to be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and do this with Silly Putty, and then once I'm done with that, we'll go in the spray booth and start shooting some paint, because it's going to be a several layer process again, metallic and candy colors and stuff like that. So Silly Putty is the way to go. I guess what I'll do is I'll spray all the colors. I'll take the Silly Putty off, and then I'll clear coat everything, and then I'll have to figure out if I'm just going to go back and hand paint the metallics, or just kind of go in there and hand paint some satin finish on top of the metallics. Because I don't want the metallics glossy. I want them a different finish than the blue, just so it'll give us some contrast. So Silly Putty is the way to go on this, guys. So when I'm done with this, I'll be back and we'll shoot some paint. All right, so after several hours of masking, I think we got these masked off pretty good. I've already gone through and kind of hit them with a light coat of black Sentinel res again, just to try to get them all the same color. So the first color I'm going to lay down is Mr. Color number 67, purple, and that's just so the metallic paint will have an easier job of covering. If I try to go straight over the black, it would be really hard to cover over this. So I'm going to hit it with a coat of purple and then go from there. So I already have it in my airbrush. And we'll do some spraying here. So just like that. Now I hope I have enough paint. If I don't have enough purple, I'm going to have to wait till tomorrow to finish it up, because I may not have enough purple to go over the whole thing. So, but that's kind of like what that's going to look like Just a kind of a light misting. It's not real, doesn't cover 100%. We just want to get something other than black on there. So I'll do some time lapse and then we'll just keep going. Okay, so I just had just enough paint to get 2 coats on everything. So I'm going to let this dry for a little bit, and then we'll start spraying the metallic purple. I only bought 2 bottles of this. This may not be enough, but it's going to be Mr. Color GX207 metallic violet or metal violet. I'm hoping this is enough. I don't know. We'll find out. I'll clean my airbrush out, let this dry for a little bit. We'll come back and start spraying some metallic. Okay, so I've got Mr. Color GX207, Mr. Metallic, GX Metal Violet. Mixed up 2 to 1 in my airbrush, and I'll just spray 1 on film. I'm not going to do the time lapse. Let me base coat this again. Same process as the purple, just with metallics, but let's see how this looks. that's going to look really, really nice. So we'll go in here and do some shading with some dark clear purple. So let me get another piece to show you the difference. So my right's just the purple base coat, and then my left is with the metallic on top. It's looking pretty good. So I'm going to continue the base coat. I'm going to let this metallic dry overnight because we've got a lot of paint on these parts, and I don't want to do any more. So I'll put the metallics on tonight and then let everything dry, and then we'll do some shading in the next step. So that'll be the next step, is some shading. So I'll come back and do that, show you that next. Okay, I want to say something about spraying metallics. So like when you base coat, you basically go back and forth like this, and you're overlapping about 50% or so. Kind of do the same thing with metallics, but the trick is if you just do this, you're going to see stripes in your paint because of the way the metallic particles lay down. What you want to do is kind of get a good dust coat on, and this you want to fan it from all different directions. This will get all the metallic particles to lay down randomly, and you'll get a more even look to your metallics rather than getting seeing airbrush strokes, I guess would be the term, but get on a nice mist coat, and then I just come in and I just kind of fan it all the way around in different directions. And then until it looks uniform. And I don't have a whole lot of paint coming out right now. It's just kind of misting it on. But so you want to do that with metallics. You just want to go back and forth, back and forth. You want to change up the directions of your paint pattern. You will see stripes if you don't do that. So just a little tip there for spraying metallics. Okay, so continuing on. So I sprayed the purple, let's see, today's Monday. Saturday, I spent the day with my family yesterday. So this had a full day and a half to cure. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with Mr. Color GX number 108 Clear Violet, and we're going to do some shading just so it's not so flat. So I'm basically going to come in here and just kind of highlight all the panel lines and stuff like that. I'm going to give it a little more shape. It may not show up in camera right now, but all these recessed areas, we're going to go in and just put a little shadow along all the lines, panel lines and stuff. Just going to give it just a little more dimension. I'm not sure if you can see that in the camera, but you can kind of see how I went and kind of added a little shadow around that. And the more I put on, the darker it gets. So we're going to do around this little detail here. Just like that. So we're going to go around and do that over everything, and then we'll just give this a light dusting of this color and just bring the purple down just a little bit so it darkens it just a hair. So this is going to be a very long process because there's a lot of panels to do. We're going to do this on the hands, all the little on the fingers and on the hand. Just like that. So it gives it a little more shape. Makes a big difference. So my goal is to get this done tonight and get the clear coat on. So I want that clear coat to really cure for a few days before I go on to anything else on this. At least on the hand. You can see I'm spraying towards that panel. That way I concentrate all the shadow part in the recessed area. I get a little bit on the outside, it's not the big end of the world, but you want to try to keep it in that recessed area. Just like that. So I guess I can put this on time lapse. It's going to be a long time lapse, but we'll get going on it. Okay, so I got all the shading done. I'm going to put this away. I'm going to come back with one of the fingers and let this dry a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm actually going to go back into this one. This is the very first one I did, and my shading kind of changed a little bit as I went along. So now what I'm going to do is, so this doesn't, these just don't look like lines drawn in. I'm going to go in and I'm going to over thin my clear paint. Got a little bit over here. I'm going to pour out what I have in my airbrush. I want to stay consistent, so I'm actually going to pour this back into my paint jar. I'm going to mix this up. And now what I want to do is I want to over thin this. I want to blend this in, and also it's going to darken everything just a little bit because the reference photo that we're going by is a little darker than what it is right now. So I'm going to do like, I'm going to go through the last. I'm going to do 7.5 to, let's see. Actually, almost out of Mr. Color Thinner. I need to get some more. I want this really thin because I don't want it. I'm just going to shift the colors and blend it in a little bit. I took note of my mixing ratio there because I'm going to have to mix some more up. I want it to stay consistent. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to just mist this over this to kind of blend it in a little bit. And that's all I'm going to do. So I blended that shading in a little bit, and it darkened everything just a little bit. So let me show you the difference real quick. So this is what I just blended, and this is what it looked like before. So the shading was a little more prominent here, and it's just a hair brighter. So we're just going to miss one light cut over this. It's going to shift everything just a hair darker and blend the shading in just a little bit. So one thing I don't like about Silly Putty is that this has been on here for a couple days and it sags due to gravity. So like, it's starting to pull away from some of my masking. It should be okay, but it's not like you can leave it on there for days like tape. Okay, so I'll do it for the color. I just got to top coat it. So, and I'm not actually sure if they want a super high gloss on this. So I need to find out real quick. Hopefully Marcus is online. I can ask him if he wants a high gloss or more of a satin finish. A high gloss will show the shading a little. A satin finish or a semi-gloss will show the shading more. But then again, a high gloss will just look cool too. So I need to find that out before I do the next step. So, but that's the purple. So it darkened it just a little bit. This looks really awesome. If we go with a high gloss, I'll probably add a little purple pink, little purple pearlescent to it also. We'll just look at a little more, get a little more shimmer. So I'm going to find out what he wants, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I just heard back from Marcus, and it's a good thing. So I was going to start spraying a high gloss, but he decided a semi-gloss, and I agree with him. A high gloss would be really hard for the factory to replicate to get it as shiny as I do. And also, a high gloss would kill all the shading I did. Anytime you spray a gloss coat on any shading, as in the Robin I did, the shading kind of gets lost. So shading really works in a flat coat or semi-gloss or satin. So I'm actually using Krylon. It says satin crystal clear, but I sprayed on pretty wet, and it dries to a perfect semi-gloss finish. So it's really simply just spray it on wet. So just like that, and it'll dry down to a perfect semi-gloss finish. So that's all I can do tonight. I'm not going to call this work in progress done because I want to let this dry overnight, maybe 2 days. And then I want to take all the putty off and put the hand together so you guys can see what it looks like. So I'll probably jump to another step, which is basically touching up the beast, like on the legs and stuff. I still have to do the eyes and teeth and stuff like that. So while this dries, I may jump to that. So actually, you know what? I am going to call this work in progress done because otherwise it'll just be like 4 hours long. So let me show you what a piece looks like after I sprayed it about 45 minutes ago. So this piece was sprayed 30, 45 minutes ago, and you can see that it dried down perfectly to a nice semi-gloss finish, and you can see my shading. It's real subtle, but it's there. But this looks awesome. I could probably take this tape off real quick, see what it looks like against the metallic, as long as they don't touch that paint too much. The great thing about this Krylon is that it dries to the touch relatively quick. You don't want to handle it. Anytime you do a gloss or semi-gloss, it takes much longer to dry than a flat does, so you really don't want to handle it because you'll get fingerprints in it. But let's see what this purple looks like against the metallics I sprayed earlier. And I probably will have some touch-ups to do on the metallics. No big deal. I still have to do the little hand painting I want to do on them anyway. So let's see what that looks like. It's going to be a nice color combination, I think. If you watched the previous work in progress, I mentioned that I wanted this metallic because it had a kind of a warm undertone to it, which will play really nicely with the cool tone of the purple. Yeah, that's looking really good. I have my tweezers in here to get the rest of that off. Let me go get this real quick. Close that door. These fumes are escaping my paint room. Man, this looks awesome. You go in there and pick out a few of those other details with that one more metallic color. It's going to be really, really sharp. So now I will say, and this is going to happen to everyone, just the way this kit fits together, whether you get a pre-paint or a kit, there will be some paint scuffing where the beast pegs into the fingers. I don't know how you would prevent it. So don't be surprised if that happens, like either on the foot of the beast, and on Sentinel's hand. It's just going to happen. There's no way around it because it's such a tight fit, and then you add paint on top of that, and then you're going to have some rubbing issues. And I think anyone that has statues, anytime a piece pegs into another piece, you realize you're going to have some rubbing. And as long as it doesn't look bad once it's all put together, I don't care. It's part of the nature of the beast, Parts rub together, paint's going to rub off. No matter how tough the paint is, it will rub off eventually. Some scuff marks here and there. So yeah, that looks pretty good. That's a cool color combo right there, guys. So I'm going to go in, I'll hand paint some of these gears maybe. I don't know, we'll figure it out. But yeah, nice color combo. So that's it for work in progress number 4. When I do work in progress number 5, I did get the LED unit in that I've ordered that Marcus suggested, and it fits perfectly in the hand. And it's like I think it was like $5. I think I bought 2 of them. I think it was like $10 shipped from China. It took about 2 weeks to get here, week and a half, but they change colors. It's got a remote control, and you just put a little piece of double stick tape in the middle of the hand and it fits perfectly. So, but this looks freaking amazing. Really happy with this. So I'm going to spray the rest of these purple parts, and then we'll do Work in Progress 5 starting in the next day or two. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. This is Matt Mrozek. Catch you guys next time.